So finding a comfortable spot to sit in, we'll begin today's practice with your eyes closed and start off with some breathing. So just inhaling and exhaling with your eyes closed and just kind of noticing where the breath goes when you take in a breath and exhale evenly without trying to force the breath in or push the air out. And see if you can bring your attention to all the little small things that happen with your breath. Like maybe notice how high your chest raises when you inhale. Maybe notice that your neck and shoulders become a little bit heavier as you exhale. Maybe you notice the sound of your breath. What does it sound like when you take in a breath? And what sound does your body make when you exhale? And it's in the process of bringing your attention to all of these little tiny physicalities with something as ordinary as breathing that you bring your mind into your body's time, which is always in the present. So bring a little bit more intention to your breath. So as you inhale, your spine gets a little bit taller. And as you exhale, you tuck your belly button into your spine and up towards your heart. See how that kind of changes the musculature of your breathing down here, your tummy. Then resuming normal breath, we'll set an intention for today's practice. And then making movement with your breath, we'll inhale, reaching both hands up towards the sky. And then exhale, reaching your fingertips out to the sides until your lungs are empty and your fingers find the floor, pushing out all the air at the bottom. And inhale, reaching both hands up towards the sky. Exhale, hands out to the sides. Metering your breath so your lungs are empty by the time your fingers find the floor, and then pushing out all the air, just being comfortable having no air in your body for a moment. And inhale, reaching both hands up towards the sky. And then dropping one hand down by the side, doesn't matter which hand, as you extend your top arm over your head. And then roll that shoulder blade over towards your back so your heart gets to look up towards the ceiling. Taking a deep breath with a long exhale. Squeezing from the obliques, floating back up to center, bringing both hands to the sky, and switching sides. Reaching your top arm over your head, and then rolling that shoulder blade over your back. On an exhale, coming back up to center, taking in a breath, and then folding over at the waist into an easy forward fold. Walking your hands out in front of you and letting your forehead drop down towards the floor. And then breathing here, so inhaling fully and exhaling completely, noticing where the air goes when there's no room for your belly to move forwards. Letting your forehead drop down towards the floor. And then slowly walking both hands over to the right side, just about as far as feels good. Feel a stretch through your left side body. Taking a deep breath, long exhale, so you soften over your right thigh. And whenever you're ready, walking both hands over to the left side, just about as far as feels good. Taking a deep breath and soften your heart over your left leg. You feel that stretch through your right side body, right rib cage. One more time, walking both hands back towards the center. Maybe bring your hands out just a little bit further than where they were the first time you came down. Letting your forehead drop down towards the floor. And if you have any thoughts that are still nagging on your head, you can drop them off right down there on the mat. Pick them up later if they're really, truly important. Then using your hands to push yourself back up, will make your way onto your hands and knees on the mat. So with your fingertips spread wide and your hands under your shoulders and your knees under your hips, you're going to do cat and cow. So as you inhale, you drop your belly down towards the floor and look up towards the ceiling. And then as you exhale, you curve your spine up towards the ceiling, tucking your chin to your navel. And moving at your own breath here. So I'm not going to give the cues, but inhaling to look up and then exhaling to look down. And try and feel each vertebrae along your spine sliding over the next as you warm up all the muscles along your spine, and your neck, and your shoulder girdle. As you do flexion and extension, maybe you notice something else in your hips. And we'll do 1 or 2 more passes. And then eventually we'll all meet in a nice neutral spine. Putting all the weight into your left hand and reaching your right arm out in front of you and taking your gaze straight down to the floor. So bring your right ear to your right biceps and then pushing your left heel straight back behind you. Tucking your belly button into your spine so you have a really strong core. On an exhale, bring your elbow to your knee under your body. And then inhale to extend, pushing out and reaching really far. Exhale to connect. Inhale to extend. Exhale to connect. One more time, reaching out. And coming back down onto all fours and switching sides. So reaching your left arm out in front of you. So your left biceps is aligned with your left ear. And then pushing your right heel straight back behind you, tucking your belly button into your spine so you got a strong unit. Taking a deep breath, and then on the exhale, connect elbow to knee on your body. Inhale to extend. Exhale to connect. Inhale to extend. One more time to connect. One more time to extend. And then coming back down onto all fours. And bring your knees out to either side of the mat with your big toes together. We're going to come all the way back into child's pose. So you walk your fingertips out in front of you and let your forehead drop down towards the floor. So you let your bum rest down on your heels. But for this child's pose, we're going to make it a little bit of an active child's pose. So pressing your fingertips into the mat, so you're driving your bum down towards your heels. And then curling under your toes to come into first downward dog of the class. So pressing your fingertips into the mat and pushing your shoulders away from your wrists. For this first downward dog, you can pedal your heels, you can shake your head, you can wiggle your hips. You can do whatever you need to do to kind of take stock of where you're at physically. We'll hold here for 2 more breaths. And looking in between your hands, we're going to walk your feet to your hands until we all find ourselves into a nice, easy forward fold. Letting your head and your arms relax down. Shaking out your head. No. Shake your head. Yes. Roll your shoulders, wiggle your fingers, wiggle your toes, wiggle your nose. And then bending at the knees, curling 1 vertebrae at a time, all the way up to standing. Inhale, reaching both hands up over your head. And then exhale, hands down by your sides. Inhale, reaching both hands up and grabbing onto a big old ball of joy. Then extending that ball towards one side of the room. Take the gaze under your shoulder. Squeeze from the obliques to come back up to center and fold over to the other side of the room. Come back up to center. Opening up your heart to limitless possibilities that a Wednesday at home has to offer. And then exhale to fold down into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through your spine, so flattening out your back. And then exhale to walk yourself out into your plank position. So hands are underneath your shoulders. And for the first chaturanga, we'll lower down knees, chest, and chin, keeping your elbows tight into your sides until you're resting all the way on your tummy. And then pressing the tops of your feet into the floor. We're going to squeeze the muscles in your lower back to come up into baby cobra. So you're drawing your shoulders down away from your ears and your elbows tight to your sides. And you're looking up. And your hands could come off the floor here, but they're there just to give you a little bit of support. And then pushing off your hands and knees all the way back into your child's pose. Stretching out your lats, all the muscles in your back. And then curling under your toes to come into your downward facing dog. And for this downward dog, holding it with a little bit more intention. So pushing your heels down to the floor behind you and squeezing at the front part of your legs, the quads, to push the back of your knees to the wall behind you. All the while keeping your head loose and relaxed. Hold here for 2 more breaths. Looking in between your hands, walk or jump forwards, back into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through the crown of your head. And then exhale, fold down a little bit deeper. And then inhale, coming all the way up to standing, raising both hands up over your head. Grabbing onto a big old ball of happiness and extending it towards one side of the room, reaching it as far as you can so you feel that stretch through your lats. Take the gaze under your biceps towards the ceiling. And then on the exhale, squeeze from the obliques to come back up and fold over in the opposite direction, reaching that ball away from you. One more time, coming back up to center, opening up your heart into a gentle back bend, and then exhale to fold down into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through the crown of your head. Exhale, fold down a little bit deeper, then walk yourself out to your plank. And you can either lower knees, chest, chin for your chaturanga, or take full high to low push-up. Hovering just above the ground, coming into baby cobra or upward facing dog. Rubber dog, your toes are on the floor and you're pulling your heart forwards as you draw your shoulder blades back towards each other. And then curl over your toes to come into your downward facing dog. Again, holding it with a little bit more intention. And reaching your tailbone up towards the ceiling, pretty much as high as you can, while at the same time pushing your heels down towards the floor so you feel a good stretch across your hamstring or your calves, or your soleus, the area just below your calves. We'll hold here for 2 more breaths. And then look in between your hands, walk or jump forwards, back into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through the crown of your head. Exhale, fold down deeper. Then inhale, coming all the way up to standing, raising both arms up over your head. Then grabbing onto that big old ball of joy one last time, extending it towards one side of the room. So you open up through that side body. Maybe you're reaching it really far, like you want to pass it to someone who's like just over there, and they won't take it. So you squeeze it back up to center and pass it towards the other side of the room. And you're reaching it, and no takers. Nobody wants a big golden orb of happiness except for you. So bring it back up to center, open up through your heart, and then exhale to fold down into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through the crown of your head, and then exhale to walk yourself out into your plank, and take whichever form of chaturanga you prefer. Knees, chest, chin, or high to low push-up, into baby cobra or upward facing dog. Listen to your body. And then curl over your toes into your downward facing dog. Raising your right heel all the way up behind you, pushing your right heel as high to the ceiling as you can. Then rolling your right ankle, wiggling your right toes. And then opening up at the hip to drop your right heel down towards the crown of your head. And then raising your head to try and touch your right heel behind you, coming into a back bend. Stepping your right foot through in between your hands, pausing at the low lunge for a moment. Giving a little rock front and back to open up your left hip flexor. So pushing your left heel away from you, the back leg away from you, keeping that back leg really strong. And then maintaining that strength, you're going to look over your right shoulder so you can see the world behind you. Take a look over your left shoulder. Then from here, we're going to drop your back heel down to the ground at about a 45-degree angle and float up into Warrior One. Reaching both hands up over the sky and hips square off to the mat in front of you. And with each breath, the pose changes just a little bit. So as you inhale, your pinkies reach up towards the sky. As you exhale, you draw your shoulders down away from your ears. As you inhale, you square off your hips a little bit more. As you exhale, you drive your right knee forwards a little bit deeper. So it's like that. You're just kind of always making a little change to come into the pose a little bit deeper. 2 more breaths here. And then opening up into your Warrior Two, reaching both hands out in either direction, and just making sure that the heel of your front foot is in line with the arch of your back foot. And then pushing that right knee forwards as you come into the pose a little bit deeper. Softening the gaze over the ring finger of your right hand. As you inhale, your heart gets up a little bit higher. As you exhale, sink into the pose a little bit more. So again, there's always a little bit of change that's happening as you're in the Warrior Two. Dropping your back hand down towards your back leg, and reach your top arm over your head behind you as you drive your right knee forwards. You can leave this left hand here on your thigh, or you can drape it across your lower back to find your right hip crease. Come to the pose just a little bit deeper. Take the gaze up towards the ceiling. As you inhale, you extend through this part of your ribs. Then as you exhale, you tuck your belly button into your spine. On an exhaling breath, we'll bring your right elbow to your right knee, reaching your left arm over your head out in front of you, and then rolling your left shoulder blade over the right so your heart gets to look up towards the ceiling. And that top arm is strong and engaged, so your bicep isn't resting on your ear, but there's a little bit of space. So your shoulder is still strong and engaged. Keeping that front leg really strong. You're going to reach your bottom arm underneath to grab onto that big old golden orb of happiness that's always floating around you. You just got to find it sometimes. Extend it up towards the ceiling into the world behind you. Reaching it towards the front of the room, extending as far as you can. Like again, you want to pass it off to someone, but it's your golden orb of happiness, no one else's. So bring it back up to the ceiling behind you. And then cartwheel both hands down, either side of your front foot. Walk yourself out into your plank and take whichever form of chaturanga you prefer. High-low push-up, knees, chest, chin. Float up into baby cobra or upward facing dog. And then curl over your toes into your downward dog. And just pausing here for a moment, pedaling one heel after the other, and just see if you can feel the difference from one leg to the next after doing that little warrior sequence. Raising your left heel all the way up behind you, and then opening up the hips, drop your left heel down towards the crown of your head, and then raising the crown of your head to try and find that left heel. If you can make the connection, class is free. It's free anyway, but do your best. And then stepping your left foot through in between your hands for a low lunge, and pausing there for a moment. Stretch out your right hip flexor, the right front of your head. Giving a little rock front and back. And then pushing your right heel away from you, keeping that back right leg really strong. You're going to take your gaze over one shoulder so you can see the world behind you. Take your gaze over the other shoulder. It all looks clear, so we'll drop your back heel down to the mat and float up into your Warrior One. So pushing the outside edge of your back foot into the floor and then squaring off your hips to the front of the mat. As you inhale, your pinkies come up a little bit higher. As you exhale, you drive that left knee forwards just a little bit more. The same deal. As you breathe, the pose changes just a little bit. So you're always engaged and always reaching a little bit higher and coming into that awareness in your body, yoking your mind to your body. Yoga. Keeping your legs strong, opening out to your warrior two, reaching both hands out in either direction. And then just taking a moment to make sure that the heel of your front foot is in line with the arch of your back foot. Taking the gaze over your left fingertips and then driving your left knee forwards just a little bit more. As you inhale, your spine gets a little bit taller. As you exhale, your shoulders soften down away from your ears. Dropping your back hand down to your back leg and reaching your top arm over your head behind you. And then driving your left knee forwards, extending your left fingertips towards the world behind you. If you want to make it a little bit harder, you can drape your right arm across your lower back to find your left hip crease. On the exhaling breath, bring your left elbow to your left knee, and then reach your right arm up and then over your head towards the front of the room, rolling your right shoulder blade over the left. So that top arm is strong and engaged. So there's a little bit of space between your biceps and your ear, and your neck is strong, so your head isn't like collapsing down, but it's staying neutral and in line with your spine. Keeping that bottom leg really strong. We're going to reach your bottom arm underneath to grab onto your giant golden orb of joy that's always floating around you. You got it. Extend it up towards the ceiling, to the world behind you. Reaching it forwards as far as you can. One more time up behind you. And then cartwheeling both hands either side of your front foot. Walk yourself out into your plank. And chaturanga. Inhale into your upward dog or baby cobra. And then curl over your toes into your downward dog. And again, just pausing here for a moment to feel the difference from one side to the other after doing that little warrior sequence. And then looking in between your hands, walk or jump forwards back into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through the crown of your head to flatten your back. Exhale, fold down a little bit deeper. And then inhale, coming all the way up to standing, reaching both arms up to the sky. Exhale, hands down by your sides. Cool. So from here, we're going to step your right foot back about 2 feet with a little space in between them, like you're on a very small train track, like a tiny train track. Like the train is so small that you could just barely sit on it, but it's still there. Finding your hip bones with your fingertips, we're going to square off your hips towards the front of the room. Inhale, lengthening through your spine, and then exhale, folding at that hip crease where your waist is, keeping your back really straight, coming down into intense leg stretch. So you're keeping your both legs as straight as can be, back is straight, and once you can't go down any further, you can bend at the back and release your hands to find the floor, and let your forehead drop down towards your left knee. And all together, let's take in a deep breath with a noisy exhale. Letting your head drop down a little bit closer towards the floor, but with your legs engaged. And pulling your right hip forwards and your left hip back, you can make the stretch just a little bit deeper, a little bit stronger if you need it to be. Two more breaths here. And then whenever you're ready, slowly walking your fingertips forward to put all the weight into your front foot, and your back heel floats up towards the ceiling for needle pose. So raising that right leg as high as you can behind you as you bring your forehead down towards your left knee. And your hands are there to provide balance and support, but if you want to make it a little bit harder, grab onto your left ankle with one hand or both hands to pull you down a little bit deeper. But it's all good, as long as you keep that right leg floating up just a little bit higher. And then slowly lowering down the right foot behind the left so your pinky toes are touching and your ankles are crossed. Inhale, lengthen out through your spine, and then exhale to fold down into your sciatic stretch. So you can use the support of the floor here to protect the stretch, but take in a really deep breath and just kind of notice how that breath changes the stretch for you. Sliding your hands up your legs. You're going to interlace your fingers behind your back, pulling your knuckles up to the ceiling and then over your head out in front of you. And then leading with the heart to float all the way up to standing, pulling your knuckles down to the floor behind you. If you see any sparkles in your vision, that's super cool, but just let it pass. And then release your hands. And then we're going to draw your right foot up into tree pose. So you can either start off with your right heel on your right ankle and bring your knee out to the side. Or you can put your arch of your foot on your calf, or heel all the way up into your inner thigh. Once you find your tree, bring your hands into a prayer in front of your heart. And then push the floor away from you so you get just a little bit taller through your spine. And it's a beautiful spring day, so we can certainly harness some of the power of the trees in this one. Opening up the branches of your tree, sinking your shoulders down away from your ears. And then from here to come into Warrior 3, pushing your right heel straight back behind you and folding over at the waist, either reaching your hands out in front of you or delta wing your arms out to the sides, your back heel floating up in the air. And then whenever you're ready to come out of it, squeeze from left hamstring to come all the way back to standing, and glitter fingers out to the sides. Sparkle sunshine magic. Take a second to pedal out your feet, adjust your pants, wiggle your bum, whatever you need to do. And then find that hip crease again with your hands, and we'll step your left foot back behind you, about 2 feet, and squaring out your hips towards the front of the room as we prepare for intense leg stretch on the other side. So finding that hip crease, lengthening out through your spine, and then exhale, folding over at the waist, keeping your back just as straight as can be so you feel that stretch across your right hamstring with your hips square off to the floor. Folding down, 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 and then eventually releasing your hands, curving your spine and bringing your forehead down towards your right knee. Again, let's all take in a deep breath with a nice exhale. Just letting your forehead soften down over that right leg. And drawing your right hip back and your left hip forwards. You kind of change the nature of the intense leg stretch to make it a little bit more intense. With each exhaling breath, you're softening down just a little bit more. And slowly transitioning all the way into your front foot, walking your fingertips forwards, and letting your back heel float up to the ceiling as high as you can, as you bring your forehead down towards your right knee for needle pose. And try and keep your hips square off to the mat, so you're not rolling your left hip open to the side, but you're squeezing from your left bum cheek. So raise that left leg up behind you. Again, you can make it into a balancing posture by grabbing onto your right ankle with one hand or both hands. Raise that left leg up just a little bit higher. Good. And then on an exhale, bring your left foot down behind your right foot so your pinky toes are touching. Inhale, lengthen out through your spine, and then exhale to fold down into your sciatic stretch, letting your head hang down loose, but your hands are providing enough support on the floor so you're not hurting yourself, but you're feeling a good stretch. Slowly sliding your hands up your legs to interlace your fingers behind your back, pulling your knuckles up to the ceiling and then over your head towards the front of the room to open up your shoulder girdle. Then leading with the heart to float all the way up to standing, pulling your knuckles down to the floor behind you. Just wait a second for sparkles to pass. I'm talking to myself there. And then release your hands. And then we'll draw your left foot up into tree pose. So either bring your left heel to your right ankle, arch of your left foot to your right calf, or left foot all the way up into your inner thigh. Once you find your tree, bring your hands into a prayer in front of your heart and focus your gaze on something that doesn't move. That's your drishti. Pushing the floor away from you so you get a little bit taller through your spine. And as you exhale, you're tucking your belly button into your spine and up to your heart. Opening up the branches of your tree and sinking your shoulders down away from your ears. And from here, we're going to transition into Warrior 3. So pushing your left heel straight back behind you, and folding over at the waist, reaching your fingertips out in front of you, or delta wing your arms out to the sides. So your heart's looking down towards the floor and your back leg is strong. And then whenever you decide to come out of it, squeeze from the right hamstring to come all the way back up to standing, and glitter your fingers out to the side. Woo. Bringing your big toes together with a little space in between your heels. You're going to inhale, raising both hands up over your head, and then exhale to fold down into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through the crown of your head. And then exhale, folding down and bending at the knees until you can rest your torso on your thighs. Reaching both hands up to come into chair pose. Keeping your shoulders down away from your ears and your core engaged so you don't have a hump back and you don't have a super sway back, but you're trying to maintain a neutral spine as you settle your bum down just a little bit deeper. Bringing both hands into a prayer in front of your heart. And then exhale to fold down into your forward fold. Inhale, lengthen out through your spine. And then exhale to walk yourself out into your plank and pausing at the high plank. Cool. So from here, we're going to plant your right hand down into the center of the mat and roll over onto your side, coming into a high side plank. If this feels impossible, you can plant your left foot down to give you a little bit of support. If you want to make it a little bit harder, you can float your left leg up into the sky like you're a flying starfish. 2 more breaths here. On an exhale, bring that left hand back down to the floor and switching sides. So planting your left hand in the center of the mat, rolling over onto your left side, and reaching your right arm up towards the sky, and finding whichever variation is right for you. Try not to fall, like me. 2 more breaths. Dropping your right hand down towards the mat, and then curling over your toes to come into your downward dog. Raising your right heel all the way up behind you. You're going to float your right knee to your right elbow, hovering above the ground for a moment. Send it straight back up behind you. Bring your right knee to your left elbow, crossing under your midline. Then straight back up behind you. Bring your knee to your nose. Try and actually kiss your kneecap. Send it straight back up behind you. And then folding your right leg through into pigeon pose. So your right knee is kind of behind your right wrist. Right ankle is trying to be parallel across the front of the mat behind your left wrist. And then you wiggle your left foot back. It's more or less center on the mat. If you got a good space in between your right bum cheek and the floor, you can stuff a pillow or a block under there. Inhale, lengthen out through your spine, and then exhale to walk yourself down. Let your forehead rest in either your hands or another pillow if you have one close at hand. Walk your hands out and let your forehead rest on the floor. Wherever we're at, we're going to hold this pose for not too long, but long enough that you feel a little release in your hips. So as you inhale, try and identify the muscles that are providing resistance. And then on the exhale, you can send them a message, just relax and soften a little bit deeper. Slowly walking yourself back up, taking your time to get there. Pausing for a moment at the top, take a look over one shoulder so you can see the wall behind you. Take a look over the other shoulder. And then curl under your toes to come back into your downward facing dog, taking your time to get there. Pedal out your heels, feel the difference from one side to the other. And then raising your left heel all the way up behind you. Floating your left knee to your left elbow, hovering above the ground for a moment. Send it straight back up behind you. Bring your left knee to your right elbow, crossing under your midline. Send it straight back up behind you. Bring your knee to your nose, try and kiss your kneecap. Send it straight back up behind you. And then folding your left leg through into pigeon pose on the other side. So again, left knee is kind of behind your left wrist. Left ankle is trying to get behind your right wrist. And then wiggle your right leg back so it's more or less center on the mat. Finding any props or support you need to find for your left bum cheek. Inhale, lengthen out through your spine. And then exhale to walk yourself down. Just let your forehead rest on either your hands or a block or a pillow or the floor. And we'll settle here for a few breaths. Just using the exhaling breath to come into the pose a little bit deeper. And slowly walking yourself back up, taking your time to get there. Pausing at the top, look over one shoulder so you can see the world behind you. Over the other shoulder. And then rolling over onto your left bum cheek, you're going to bring your right leg around in front of you. So you're sitting kind of on the front edge of your mat. Moving the muscle out of the way from your bum so you can find those sits bones firmly on the floor. And then pushing your heels away from you so the backs of your knees are down into the mat. You're going to inhale, raising both hands up over your head. And then exhale to fold to birdcage your feet and drop your forehead down towards your knees. If you can't quite reach your feet, you can slide your hands underneath your calves and pull your heart forwards and then drop your heart down towards your thighs. No matter where you're at, you're just going to let your forehead drop down so you feel that stretch across your neck and upper back. Inhaling deeply and exhaling completely, just kind of noticing where the breath goes. When you're all folded forwards, there's no room for your belly to expand. Reaching out past your legs, and then floating all the way back up. Exhale, hands down by your sides, and we'll come to laying down flat on your back on the mat. I'm just gonna shift the mat a little bit so you're not looking at my butt for the next 5 minutes. Okay. So finding your heels with your fingertips, and your heels in line with your hips, and your knees in line with your heels. We're gonna push off of the floor and raise your hips up towards the sky. If you have a block or a pillow at home, you can put it underneath your lower back here and just relax for a little sacral release. If you want to interlace your fingers, you can walk your elbows and your triceps towards each other. So you're stacking yourself up on your arms. If your fingers are laced together and you're up on your arms, you're going to be pulling your knuckles down towards your heels as you raise your hips up, strong towards the ceiling. Holding here for 3 more long, slow, deep breaths. And slowly releasing, moving your hands out of the way or walk out of the way if you're using it. And then hugging both knees into your chest. Give a little rock side to side, massaging the muscles of your lower back, back on the floor. And then straightening your right leg along the mat. With your right hand, we're going to pull your left knee across your body into a spinal twist, reaching your left arm out to the side. So with each exhaling breath, you just kind of let your arm and leg relax down towards the floor a little bit deeper. Trying to use all the force of gravity to come into the stretch a little bit more. Slowly making around to your back, hugging both knees into your chest. Yourself a little rock side to side. And then switching sides, straighten out your left leg along the floor. And with your left hand pulling your right knee across your body and reaching your right arm out to the side for spinal twist. So the left hand that's holding your right knee is just kind of holding your leg in position, but I'm not pulling my knee down towards the ground. I'm just trying to exhale enough so that my limbs become heavy enough to come into the stretch. One last time, hugging both knees into your chest. Making your body like a little itty bitty seat, tucking your forehead up into your knees. And then straightening out your arms and legs into your Shavasana pose. Letting your feet splay out to the sides, letting your palms rest down heavy on the floor. You're going to take the next few moments to rest in stillness and silence as you feel the full effects of your yoga practice. If your mind starts to wander, just focus on your breath and your body on the floor. fingers and your toes to move movement back into your body. At your own pace, draw your knees into your chest. Roll over onto your side and push yourself up into a comfortable sitting position. With your hands resting on your thighs or in your lap and your eyes closed, we find ourselves how we began today's practice. Just maybe observing your breath again, noticing any changes that might have happened over the last hour. And the depth of the quality of your breathing. And then sending out a silent blessing of love and peace, patience, everyone out there who could use it. Inhale, reaching both hands up over your head. Exhale your hands into a prayer in front of your heart. And we'll close with the heartfelt Namaste. Thank you all so much for doing yoga with me. I'll see you on Friday morning at 9 a.m. for core class.